This video is made possible by Nclude.
Let's start from the beginning a little bit and talk about the journey to get here. Can you maybe tell me a bit about how you got to where you got to today?
My story is a continuation of my uncle's. So my uncle was the first consulting firm to the USAID, and he was doing consulting in the field of microfinance. And by the 1999, I was doing a dissertation, my undergrad dissertation, and I did it on the impact of microfinance. Then when I graduated, I started working with him. I did a master's degree in environment and development. At that point, I wanted to help the world, and I didn't know environment or development. And after that degree, I realized that environment is for future generations, development is poverty and current generations. In 2009, I got approached by Egypt's largest automotive distributor, GB Auto. They were selling three-wheelers, tuk-tuks, and they said, Mounir, why don't you sell them on credit? We think if you can sell them on credit, we can grow our sales in multiples, 3x, 4x. And there was no microfinance law in Egypt. So what I did is I formed a company that sells three-wheelers on credit, identically built to a microfinance company.
Okay.
This company grew to become 250 branches. And then we started adding one product after the other. Cargo tricycles, motorcycles, electrical appliances, white goods. 2014, the microfinance law was issued, and private companies were able to lend money. At that time, I was the first to applied for a microfinance license, established a microfinance company, and this company grew to become Egypt's largest microfinance company with about 600 branches across the nation. And now we have a loan book of north of $500 million. 2017 was another turning point in the journey. I got a call from one of the investors, and he told me, Mounir, I want you to take a plane, travel to Indonesia, meet Nadeem, the founder and CEO of Gojek. I spent the day with the guy, and he has $1 billion company in 2017. Yeah. And I was saying, oh my God, I thought I had a successful business and a sizable business. And I said, he has $1 billion company. We're a very small fraction of that. What's
the difference?
What's the difference? And the difference was technology. Once you put it in any business, it typically disrupts it. It helps operational scalability, makes it more efficient. Everything's data-driven. So there are so many benefits, and that's why investors value it and appreciate it. Yeah. So at that time, we started off doing ride-hailing. And ride-hailing, very soon in 2019, I was raising a $15 million round at the time for Halan.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and I realized, it just dawned on me that it doesn't make economic sense. Yeah. We were burning $1 million a month.
The sunk cost is way too high.
And the unit economics, I couldn't make it positive. And I said, okay, I'm not in that business. Yeah. If it doesn't make sense, if I'm not solving a real problem on the ground, I don't want to do it. And that was a very, very difficult decision, because at the time I aborted a round. I aborted my Series B, and we pivoted completely. We went from ride-hailing and delivery into FinTech and the super app direction. And then the face of the company, everything started changing. We introduced the loan officer app, we introduced a wallet, we introduced an e-commerce platform. And then we got into the acquiring business and payments. So now we're acquiring payments. We acquired an FMCG company that's disrupting the supply chain. Today we have north of 1 million customers, and we're growing very, very fast in terms of customers, loan book, payments, e-commerce, and e-commerce, electronics, electrical appliances, as well as FMCG. And now we're expanding that tremendously.
Wow, that's one hell of a journey, I have to say. So congratulations again. And I love how you talk about it as a continuation of where you started your life and how it all came together. But it sounds like this moment around bringing technology and enabling technology was really important.
It's very complex.
How do you build an organization where the culture and the team comes first, where you're leading with data and so on? What type of actions did you take, or what type of things did you do that really changed the way the organization behaves, if you like?
With any change, there are supporters and there are party poopers. Yeah. And then every individual in the team has to have confidence in the vision, because there's a leap of faith. So when there's big change in an organization, it doesn't always happen instantly. And that journey could be very, very tough, because change is happening on every level of the organization. So this is where really leadership comes in, aligning everyone on the vision, getting everyone to trust the ultimate goal. We're going to go through a tough time, but in the end, it's going to be so much better. We're going to be ahead of everyone, and that's
the hard part, right? Getting the people out that don't fit into that culture, bringing in new people who fit into that culture, and making that change, I assume.
Correct.
MNT has been a very innovative company, right? You guys have created so many different products and solutions and really gone after the customer or the consumer in multiple ways. I know there's a core product, but there's lots of things that you're building and so on. How do you keep this innovation going? How do you keep this motivation within the team, this creativity, if you like?
A company that doesn't grow and innovate dies. The difficult part about the innovation is not the ideas. Ideas come left, right, and center. Even from the frontliners, people who are in direct competition with the customers, ideas come from everywhere. Now, how do you prioritize the ideas? How do you execute on the ideas? How do you make an idea a reality? That's the difficult thing.
MNT Halan, super app, what does that really mean in your mind? Where does that go into the future?
Okay. Think of that. You've got the customer, he wakes up, opens our app. That's the first thing. He needs to wake up and open our app. Currently, he can use it 2 times a month, 3 times a month, but he doesn't use it on a daily basis. And why is that? Is because we're giving specific financial services that have to do, for example, with lending, with payments, with e-commerce. But the ultimate objective is that he wakes up every day, opens the app. Not only that, then he feels security from the app. If he wants to buy something, send money to a friend, buy insurance, get a loan, grow his business, if he wants to marry his daughter, if he wants to, whatever he wants to do, we have to be the app of choice to go to. And we're still very, very far from that. So that's where we're going.
I love the vision and the objectives that you have. That's sounds like you have a lot still to build. So talking about the customers and financial literacy, what is it that MNT does to help promote financial literacy and for customers to understand the products that they're buying? Because these are loans, right? People are taking on debt. How do you manage that educational process for them?
So we take this very, very seriously. So there are booths on the ground teaching the customer how to download the app and then how to use the app. And this process teaches the customer a lot of information, because in the app you have all the information you need. So once the customer has the app, they can get all the details they need and use it.
If you're a fintech entrepreneur today, just starting your own fintech, is there a piece of advice you would give them or something you would tell them to be careful with?
So there was a memo that came out in February 2022, together with rising interest rates. And so a lot of the founders and entrepreneurs have been educated during the past decade on growth, revenue. Forget about unit economics. It's not important. Profitability. Burn. My only advice is go back to basics. Go back to basics. Growth is incredibly important. Unit economics path to profitability is also important.
Yeah, and my understanding is MNT Halan is a profitable company, right? Which then opens up a whole new avenue of I guess, fundraising and relationships and types of people you can work with. What is the difference between raising money from a VC versus raising money from a private equity firm, for example?
You should specify the time.
Yeah.
Today or in 2019?
Let's talk about today.
So because in 2019, it was so much easier to raise from VCs. They do very light DD. It's very quick decisions. It's could be big bucks. Yeah. And today, the world has changed. So the money supply is going down, interest rates are going up. The story is different.
Do you feel like private equity is limiting it in some ways? Like the fact that they're, looking for that EBITDA, the margin?
Not at all. Actually, the terms of private equity funds are typically better than the terms of VCs, because the VC would come and tell you, listen, buddy, we'll give you quick money, we'll give you big money, but there's a but. We get liquidation preference. Yeah. We have our money guaranteed. We get our money before you get your money. These terms are serious terms. Yeah. Founders have lost their companies because of terms like this. So when the market goes down, it's high risk, but it's not that much high of a risk because they have their guarantees and they have their security. So the only thing I'd advise any founder is to get a really good lawyer and discuss with him the term sheet and to know exactly what he's signing up for.
No, that's super interesting because I think people forget that in VC there is that protection through preferred shares, right? Which creates a misalignment, if you think about it, between the founders and the VCs. That being said, I do think VCs are meant to be more risk takers, let's say. So the early stage, it makes a lot more sense for them to come in at.
Of course. So VCs are fantastic if you're pre-seed, if you're seed, if you're Series A, Series B, even Series C, VCs are supporting you if you're on the right trajectory. But at some point in that journey, you want to get rid of that, of these terms.
So what comes with the private equity? I know you have a number of some of the largest PE firms around the world invested in you. What comes with that? A board? So you have a lot of board meetings, you have a lot of people to align. How do you keep so many different parties looking through the same glasses that you're wearing?
So I have to admit, I've been very, very lucky with the investors I've had. They've all been super supportive and they've had a lot of trust in the vision and in the execution. We had big turns, we had big moves that we made, big investments, and they've been very, very supportive. We meet about 4 times a year. The board meetings are usually very, very laid back, I would say, compared to other board meetings, and very target focused. Everyone focuses on numbers. And I think what's really helped me throughout that journey is that I believe that most of the PEs who've bought into our company have bought in at a discounted price. So at every round, they've come in at a good valuation.
I love that piece of advice because it's always one of the key tensions whenever a round is happening is what's the price of the equity, right? And the price of the equity, in my mind, is always just whatever makes two sides feel like they have a good deal, right? Yeah. They have a good transaction. Not that one side is maximized and the other side is feeling like they're not getting the right deal that they want.
Totally. So actually, closing a deal is more important than the deal itself. So I feel at every transaction, it was better for the other side. But I was so happy to get the deal closed that I didn't care much about the specifics of the deal. Because the key thing is, are you adding value? Are you growing? Are you going up a few steps in your journey? Or are you the same or going down? And just closing these rounds just makes you take a leap forward.
Great. Do you have any plans to expand beyond Egypt? Are you looking at other markets?
Very seriously.
I think Egypt's such a unique place, right? Because you're sitting here in the kind of Middle East, Africa, and even Europe in some ways is accessible. Which way would you go? South, east, north, west?
So we certainly have plans to expand. We're very active. And the best way to expand is inorganically. So through M&As, because of the nature of the size of our business in Egypt. And we use an existing company and then grow the multiple verticals, introduce our technology, grow the client base. And so we're very, very active on that front, and we're quite advanced in a number of transactions.
That's amazing. I guess my question is for entrepreneurs who are thinking about expanding. There's always this question, do you go east to Saudi, to UAE? Do you go north into Southern Europe? Do you go south into, Sub-Saharan Africa? Do you go east? How do you think about those different regions?
Let me tell you about my experience. I tried to expand cross-border at an earlier stage of the company. Yeah. And we failed. We failed miserably. We were very, very thinly spread. We were too small, and our resources were too thinly spread. So I would recommend that people only expand cross-border when they have sufficient resources to do so. Now, the different regions are very, very different. So the GCC is a booming market. Every dollar you make there in revenue is worth more than the dollar you make in Egypt, that's for sure. From a population point of view, it's smaller. From a profiling of a customer point of view, different profile. You go further east to Southern Asia, Eastern Asia, it's also different. Sub-Saharan Africa is a very, very different story. So if you're investing in Sub-Saharan Africa, make sure that you DD whatever investment you're going to do very, very well.
You have to be very careful.
Very careful.
How does it feel to become a unicorn?
So it's actually much, much more rewarding than I previously thought about it. Okay. So initially I said, okay, unicorn, not unicorn, okay, we're still here, we want to grow 10x, okay, it's fun, it's exciting. But then there's such a big hype about it. And everyone tells you, oh my God, you're a unicorn. And then you find people in the office building things like this unicorn and then bringing it. And then you have people left, right, and center communicating with you and reaching out to you. And it's just very, very rewarding, not only for me, but for the whole team. So everyone, there's like a sense of euphoria. And I think what I need to do is bring everyone back to ground, and we're still early in the journey. We're not there, and so it takes its phase, it takes its hype, and then you move forward. Then the next one I hope will be the decacorn.
I still think it's an amazing achievement, especially during the circumstances that we're facing in Egypt, we're facing around the world with tech and everything. To have achieved that, I think is tremendous. So congratulations again. That's really amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Basil. Very much appreciate this.